My father looked at the DNA report, turned pale, and dropped it on the kitchen table. "She's not mine." 3 words. 3 words that destroyed my family. By sunset, my clothes were in garbage bags. By midnight, I was homeless. And for the next 7 years, everyone believed I was the product of an affair. Then a dying nurse mailed me a letter that changed everything. My name is Emily Carter. 7 years ago, my father looked me in the eyes and said something that destroyed my entire life. "You are not my daughter." I was 17 years old. An honor roll student. Captain of the debate team. The girl who spent every Saturday helping her dad repair old furniture in our garage. And in less than 5 minutes, I went from being his daughter to being a stranger. The worst part, he had a DNA test to prove it. Or so everyone thought. 7 years later, a dying nurse mailed me a letter that exposed a secret buried for nearly 2 decades. A secret that destroyed one family and revealed another. But before I tell you what happened, tell me where you're listening from in the comments. I read every one. Now let me take you back to the day my life fell apart. I grew up in a small town outside Minneapolis. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. Where teachers remembered your parents. Where rumors spread faster than winter storms. My father, Robert Carter, owned a hardware store. My mother, Linda, worked as a dental hygienist. And my younger brother, Ethan, was the favorite child. Nobody ever said it out loud. They didn't have to. Ethan got the new phone. I got the hand-me-down. Ethan got driving lessons at 16. I got told to save up for my own car. Ethan forgot his homework. The teacher must have made a mistake. I brought home a 98. Dad asked why it wasn't 100. I learned early that being loved and being valued were not always the same thing. Still, I loved my family. At least I thought I did. Every Sunday, we had dinner together. Every Christmas, we gathered around the same fireplace. Every summer, we rented the same cabin on Lake Superior. From the outside, we looked normal. Happy. Stable. The kind of family people envied. But appearances are cheap. Truth is expensive. And mine was about to cost everything. The beginning of the end started with a school project. A stupid school project. My biology teacher wanted us to explore genetics and ancestry. Several students ordered home DNA kits. The kind that show your heritage and distant relatives. At dinner one night, I mentioned it. "It sounds fun," Mom said. Dad laughed. "Let's all do it." Ethan immediately got excited. What if we're secretly Vikings? For the first time in months, everyone was laughing. Nobody knew those little plastic tubes would destroy our family. 2 weeks later, the kits arrived. We sat around the kitchen table. Mom, Dad, Ethan, me. Each of us spit into a tube and sealed the package. Dad joked that we should frame the results. Mom rolled her eyes. Ethan made a fake royal accent and claimed he was descended from kings. We mailed the tests the next morning. And then we forgot about them. For a while. The results arrived 6 weeks later. I still remember the date. October 14th. A Thursday. I got home from school around 4:30. The house was unusually quiet. No television. No music. No sound from the kitchen. Just silence. Heavy silence. The kind that makes your stomach tight before you know why. Dad was sitting at the dining room table. His laptop open. Mom standing beside him. Her face pale. Ethan was on the couch, staring at the floor. Nobody looked up when I walked in. "What's going on?" I asked. Dad slowly turned the laptop toward me. There was a DNA report on the screen. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw the highlighted sentence. Paternity probability, 0%. I blinked. Once. Twice. The words refused to make sense. What is this? Nobody answered. I looked at Mom. She looked away. I looked at Dad. His face was expressionless. Cold. Then he spoke. 3 words. The same 3 words that still echo in my nightmares. You're not mine. The room tilted. I actually grabbed the back of a chair because I thought I might fall. What? Dad stood. Slowly. Like a man carrying something fragile and dangerous. This test says I'm not your biological father. My heart started pounding. No. Mom began crying. Not loud. Not dramatic. The quiet kind of crying that scared me more. Mom. She covered her mouth. Dad's eyes never left mine. How long have you known? He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to her. Mom shook her head. I didn't know. Dad laughed. It was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard. You expect me to believe that? I swear, Robert. The argument exploded. And suddenly, I wasn't a daughter anymore. I wasn't even a person. I was evidence. A problem. A mistake. Something standing between 2 adults, tearing each other apart. For over an hour they screamed. Accusations. Denials. Questions. Old resentments dragged out of the grave. And through all of it, I sat there, silent, watching my family die. Around midnight, Dad made his decision. He walked upstairs, grabbed 3 garbage bags, and threw them onto my bed. Pack your things. I stared at him. What? You heard me. Dad. Don't call me that. Those 4 words hurt more than anything else that night. Don't call me that. As if 17 years could disappear because of one report. As if every bedtime story, every birthday, every scraped knee, every father-daughter dance had suddenly become meaningless. I started crying. Dad, please. His jaw tightened. Pack your things. I looked toward the hallway. Hopping Mom would stop him. She didn't. She just stood there crying. And said nothing. That silence changed how I saw her forever. By 2 a.m, my clothes were stuffed into garbage bags. By 3, I was sitting on my best friend's couch. Homeless. Disowned. And completely alone. I didn't know it yet. But the DNA test that destroyed my life was wrong. And 7 years later, the truth would ruin everyone who believed it. The first night after my father threw me out, I barely slept. My best friend, Sarah, gave me her bedroom and took the couch. Around 3 a.m, I heard her parents arguing quietly in the kitchen. Not because they disliked me. Because they didn't know what to do with me. I was 17. Not legally an adult. Not legally abandoned. Just unwanted. By sunrise, half the town already knew. Small towns are efficient that way. You don't need social media. You just need one person with a phone. By lunchtime, people were staring at me in school hallways. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked curious. A few looked disgusted. As if my existence had somehow become evidence of a crime. The whispers followed me everywhere. Did you hear? Her mom cheated. Poor Robert. I always thought something seemed off. People love mysteries. Especially when they aren't the ones suffering. 3 days later, my father officially stopped answering my calls. My texts went unread. My emails ignored. When I tried calling the hardware store, employees suddenly became unavailable. One even told me Dad was in a meeting while I could literally hear his voice in the background. I stopped calling after that. Not because it didn't hurt. Because it did. Too much. My mother called once. Only once. Emily, please understand. Understand what? Your father is going through a lot. I laughed. Actually laughed. The kind of laugh people make when they're too exhausted to cry. Your father. Mom, I lost my family. There was silence. Then she said something I'll never forget. Maybe it's best if you give him space. Space. As if 17 years of being his daughter could be paused like a television show. I hung up. We didn't speak again for almost a year. The only person who surprised me was Ethan. My little brother. The favorite child. The golden boy. 2 weeks after I got kicked out, he showed up outside Sarah's house on his bike. I found him sitting on the curb, hands shoved into his hoodie pockets, looking miserable. I sat beside him. Neither of us spoke for a minute. Then he asked quietly, "Did Mom really cheat?" I stared at the road. "I don't know." He nodded. "Dad says she did. Dad says a lot of things." Another silence. Then Ethan looked at me. "You still look like him." "What?" "Dad. You have the same eyes. The same smile. The same annoying eyebrow thing." Despite everything, I laughed. He laughed too. For a few seconds, things felt normal. Then his face became serious again. "I miss you." Those 3 words almost broke me. "I miss you too." Before leaving, he pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Dad doesn't know I took this." It was a copy of the DNA report. The same one that destroyed my life. I stared at it. At the numbers. At the percentages. At the conclusion. Paternity excluded. Probability, 0%. Cold. Clinical. Absolute. A piece of paper had erased 17 years. Months passed. Winter arrived. I turned 18. No birthday call. No birthday card. Nothing. Sarah's parents let me stay longer than they probably should have. Eventually, I got a part-time job at a grocery store. Then another at a diner. I saved every dollar. Worked every shift. Studied whenever I could. People always talk about resilience like it's inspiring. Most of the time, resilience is just survival. You keep moving because stopping isn't an option. A year after everything happened, I received a letter. No return address. Just my name written across the front. Inside was a single photograph. Nothing else. No note. No explanation. Just a picture. My mother. Standing beside a man I'd never seen before. Both smiling. Both young. The photo looked old. Maybe 20 years old. My stomach tightened. Who was he? A former boyfriend. The man everyone now assumed was my biological father. I turned the photo over. On the back, someone had written 3 words. "Ask your mother." That's it. Nothing else. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I put the photograph away. Because part of me wasn't ready. If my mother had lied, I didn't want confirmation. Not yet. Years passed. 2, 3, 4. I graduated college. Not because anyone paid for it. Because I worked myself half to death. Student loans. Night shifts. Weekend shifts. Holiday shifts. There were semesters when I survived on ramen noodles and coffee. But I graduated. Environmental science. Top of my class. The same week I got my diploma, I received another letter. Again, no return address. Again, no explanation. This time, there was a newspaper clipping. A small article. Nothing remarkable. Just a local story about a hospital renovation project. Except one sentence had been highlighted. Records archive relocation scheduled for spring. The hospital mentioned in the article was the exact hospital where I had been born. A strange chill ran through me. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. I threw the clipping into a drawer and forgot about it. Or at least I tried to. 7 years after the DNA test, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Hello. The voice on the other end was old. Weak. Tired. Is this Emily Carter? Yes. There was a long pause. Then the woman spoke. My name is Evelyn Parker. I used to work at St. Mary's Hospital. I think we need to talk. Something about her voice made my stomach drop. Why? Another pause. Longer this time. Because before I die, I need to tell you what happened the night you were born. Every sound around me disappeared. The traffic. The wind. Everything. What are you talking about? The woman started crying. Softly. The kind of crying people do when they've carried something too long. Emily, you weren't the only baby born that night. And I think the hospital gave your parents the wrong child. The world stopped. For 7 years, I had believed the DNA test destroyed my family. For 7 years, I thought the answer was an affair. For 7 years, everyone blamed my mother. But suddenly, for the first time, a completely different possibility appeared. And if Evelyn Parker was telling the truth, everything I believed about my life was wrong. Everything, including who I really was. For 3 days, I couldn't think about anything else. Not work. Not bills. Not sleep. Just one question. What happened the night I was born? The call from Evelyn Parker replayed in my head over and over. You weren't the only baby born that night. I think the hospital gave your parents the wrong child. The words sounded impossible. Like something from a movie. Not real life. Not my life. But the more I thought about it, the more pieces started fitting together. The anonymous foe. The newspaper clipping. The highlighted hospital article. Someone had been trying to point me toward the truth for years. I just hadn't understood. On the 4th day, I drove to a nursing home outside Duluth. The address Evelyn gave me. The building was old. Brick walls. White curtains. The faint smell of disinfectant hanging in the air. The receptionist pointed me toward room 214. I remember standing outside the door. Hand raised. Heart pounding. Part of me wanted to turn around. Leave. Pretend none of this existed. Because once you learn the truth, you can't unknow it. I knocked. A weak voice answered. Come in. Evelyn Parker looked much older than she sounded. Thin. Gray hair. Oxygen tube beneath her nose. But her eyes were sharp. Alert. The eyes of someone carrying a secret. She smiled sadly. You look just like her. Who? The other baby. My stomach tightened. I pulled up a chair. And for the next hour, she told me a story that changed everything. In 2002, Evelyn worked as a maternity nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. The night I was born, 2 baby girls arrived within 22 minutes of each other. One at 11:38 p.m. One at exactly midnight. Same floor. Same wing. Same shift. Same nursery. One baby belonged to Linda and Robert Carter. My parents. The other belonged to a wealthy family named the Hawthorns. A family I'd never heard of. Who are the Hawthorns? Evelyn looked surprised. You've really never heard the name? No. She gave a small laugh. They're one of the wealthiest families in Minnesota. The Hawthorne Foundation. Hawthorne Timber. Hawthorne Investments. Suddenly, the name sounded familiar. Not from personal experience. From news articles, charity events, business stories. The kind of family people read about but never meet. What do they have to do with me? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Everything. 21 years ago, a power outage hit the hospital. A major one. Backup generators worked. But not perfectly. Several systems failed, including portions of the newborn tracking system. Staff were overwhelmed. Rooms were moved. Records updated manually. Mistakes happened. Then Evelyn said something that made my blood run cold. One baby bracelet disappeared. Gone. Lost during the confusion. Hospital administrators believed they fixed the problem. But years later, Evelyn found evidence suggesting they hadn't. Evidence of what? Her voice cracked. A baby switch. The room became silent. I stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. Are you saying? Yes. I think you were sent home with the wrong family. I wanted proof. Not theories. Not guesses. Proof. Evelyn nodded. I expected that. Then she opened a drawer beside her bed. Inside was a thick envelope, yellowed with age, protected inside clear plastic. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first document was a photocopy. Hospital nursery logs. The second was an incident report. The third made my heart stop. A handwritten memo. Dated the night I was born. The memo described confusion involving 2 newborn girls. Missing identification bracelet. Temporary reassignment. Verification pending. Signed by a supervisor. My pulse hammered. This was real. Not a conspiracy. Not a fantasy. Real. Then Evelyn handed me one final piece of paper. This one was newer. Recent. Only a few months old. What's this? She looked away. After retirement, I couldn't stop thinking about that night. So I started digging. Eventually, I hired a private investigator. My jaw dropped. You did what? The guilt never left me. I needed to know. The investigator tracked the Hawthorne family. And he found something strange. Very strange. The Hawthornes had also conducted DNA testing years ago. Privately. Confidentially. And the results showed something impossible. Their daughter wasn't biologically related to them either. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. What? Both families had a daughter. And neither daughter matched. Which meant only one thing. The bobbies had been switched. The room spun. My entire identity was collapsing. Again. Only this time, the pieces fit differently. My father wasn't my biological father. That part was true. But not because my mother cheated. Because I was never supposed to be his daughter in the first place. And somewhere out there, another woman had spent 21 years living the life that should have been mine. Who knows about this? Evelyn looked down. The Hawthornes. My heart stopped. What? They know. How long? Several years. The answer hit me like a punch. Several years. They knew. And never contacted me. Evelyn nodded slowly. They hired investigators. They confirmed everything. They know exactly who you are. The room went silent. I could feel anger rising. Hot. Sharp. Why didn't they tell me? Why didn't anyone tell me? Evelyn's expression darkened. Because the Hawthornes weren't the only people who learned the truth. Someone else found out too. Who? She swallowed hard. Your father. Robert Carter. I froze. No. Evelyn nodded. Yes. According to the investigator, your father learned there were serious questions about the DNA results nearly 6 years ago. My mind went blank. No, that couldn't be true. He couldn't have known. If he knew, everything changed. Everything. Because if Robert Carter knew the DNA test might have another explanation, then he hadn't thrown me away because he believed the truth. He had thrown me away despite it. And suddenly, for the first time in 7 years, I wasn't wondering whether my father had made a mistake. I was wondering whether he'd abandoned me on purpose. Then Evelyn reached into the envelope one last time. There is something else. Something the investigator recovered. What? She handed me a business card. An attorney. Minneapolis. On the back, someone had written 6 words in blue ink. We have been looking for you. Signed, Jonathan Hawthorne, the patriarch of the Hawthorne family, the man who might actually be my biological father. And according to this card, he already knew exactly who I was. I stared at the words. My entire life had been built on a lie. And for the first time, I was about to meet the people who should have taken me home 21 years ago. 3 days later, I drove to Minneapolis. The entire trip felt unreal. Traffic lights, gas stations, coffee shops, normal things. But nothing felt normal anymore. Because somewhere ahead of me was a family that shared my DNA. A family that had known I existed for years. A family that might have been looking for me. Or avoiding me. I still didn't know which. The Hawthorne headquarters occupied the top floors of a glass tower downtown. 47 stories. Steel. Glass. Money. The kind of building people photograph when they visit a city. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes before going inside. Part of me was terrified. What if they didn't want me? What if they only wanted to satisfy curiosity? What if I was walking into another rejection? The receptionist already knew my name. Miss Carter. They're expecting you. My stomach tightened. Of course they were. The elevator opened onto the executive floor. A woman in a navy suit greeted me. Emily. Yes. This way. The conference room overlooked the entire city. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Polished wood table. Expensive artwork. And 3 people waiting. A man. A woman. And a young blonde woman around my age. The moment I entered, everyone stood. The older woman burst into tears. Not dramatic tears. The kind that come from somewhere deep. 21 years deep. Oh my God. The words barely left her mouth. She covered her face. The man beside her looked equally emotional. Emily. His voice shook. I've waited a long time to meet you. I knew instantly. Jonathan Hawthorne. And his wife, Catherine. My biological parents. I don't remember who moved first. Only that a few seconds later, Catherine was hugging me. Crying. Apologizing. Holding me like she was trying to recover 21 lost years in a single moment. And strangely, I cried too. Not because I knew her. I didn't. Because part of me suddenly realized what I'd lost. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. School graduations. 21 years. Gone. For almost 2 hours we talked. They showed me photographs. Hospital records. Investigator reports. DNA confirmations. Everything. There was no doubt. I was their biological daughter. And they were my biological parents. But there was one person who barely spoke. The blonde woman. The one sitting across the room. Watching. Silent. Studying me. Finally, Jonathan introduced her. Emily. This is Rebecca. Rebecca Hawthorne. The daughter they had raised. The daughter who should have been Linda and Robert Carter's child. The girl who had unknowingly lived my life. Rebecca smiled politely. But something felt wrong. Not angry. Not exactly. Careful. Measured. Like someone evaluating a threat. We shook hands. Nice to meet you. You too. Her voice was perfectly pleasant, yet somehow cold. The conversation continued. But every time I looked up, Rebecca was watching me. And every time our eyes met, she looked away. Eventually, Catherine excused herself. Jonathan stepped out to answer a call, leaving Rebecca and me alone. For the first time, the silence stretched. Then Rebecca spoke. You look like her. Who? Mom. I wasn't sure what to say. Thanks. She laughed softly. Not really a compliment. Then she leaned back. You know this changes everything, right? The way she said it made my stomach tighten. What do you mean? Rebecca looked toward the city skyline. For 21 years, I've been their daughter. I nodded. Okay. She looked back at me, then suddenly smiled. Just don't expect things to be simple. The room felt colder. When I got back to my apartment that evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. The voice nearly made me drop the phone. Dad. It was Robert Carter. The first time I'd heard his voice in 7 years. Emily. Silence filled the line. 7 years. And that's how we started. No apology. No explanation. Just my name. What do you want? The words came out sharper than intended. He sighed. I heard you've been talking to the Hawthorns. My pulse spiked. How do you know that? Small world. No. Not a small world. Someone was watching. And suddenly, I realized something. The Hawthorns weren't the only people investigating the baby switch story. My father had been following it too. For years. I asked the question that had haunted me since speaking to Evelyn. Did you know? Silence. Long silence. Dad. Another pause. Then finally. Know what? That there was another explanation. That Mom might not have cheated. That the DNA test wasn't the whole story. I heard him exhale slowly. The answer took too long. Much too long. And that's when I knew. Even before he spoke. I knew. Yes. One word. One devastating word. Yes. The room spun. You knew. Emily. You knew. His voice became quieter. I learned there were questions. About 6 months after the test. Questions. Questions. Dad, you threw me out. His silence told me everything. For years, I imagined my father as a victim. A man who believed a lie. A man who made a terrible mistake. But victims don't ignore evidence. Victims don't abandon children after learning there might be another explanation. Victims don't stay silent for 7 years. The realization hurt more than the DNA test ever had. Because now I understood something. The DNA test didn't destroy my family. My father's choices did. Then Robert Carter said something I'll never forget. Something that changed the entire story again. Emily, there's something else you don't know. My heart sank. What? The Hawthorns didn't find you first. I did. The room went completely silent. What? I found you. Years ago. Before they did. I couldn't breathe. That's impossible. No. His voice sounded tired. Broken. The investigator brought me the same evidence. The same hospital records. The same possibility. I knew exactly who you were, exactly where you were, exactly what happened. Then why didn't you come for me? The question exploded out of me. Why? For several seconds, there was only breathing. Then he whispered, because I was ashamed. And for the first time since the DNA test, I heard genuine regret. But regret and forgiveness aren't the same thing. Not even close. Before hanging up, he said one final thing. Be careful around Rebecca. The warning caught me off guard. Why? Another pause. Because she has more to lose than anyone. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. Confused. Unsettled. And suddenly, very aware of something. For 21 years, Rebecca Hawthorne had been the heir to one of Minnesota's wealthiest families. The only daughter. The future of the Hawthorne name. And now, I existed. The biological daughter. The real daughter. Whether I wanted that role or not. And if Robert Carter was right, Rebecca wasn't afraid of losing her parents. She was afraid of losing everything else. The inheritance. The company. The future. And that meant the real battle hadn't started yet. It had only just begun. For the next 2 weeks, I tried to stay away from Hawthorne family drama. I told myself I wasn't interested in money. I wasn't interested in inheritance. I wasn't interested in corporate boardrooms or family legacies. I had spent 7 years building my own life. I didn't need theirs. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Unfortunately, reality had other plans. 3 weeks after meeting the Hawthornes, Jonathan invited me to a family dinner. Nothing formal. Just family. The phrase made me uncomfortable. Family. That word had betrayed me before. Still, I agreed. Partly because Catherine seemed genuine. Partly because I wanted answers. And partly because a small part of me wondered what it felt like to belong somewhere. The Hawthorne estate sat on 40 acres outside Minneapolis. Calling it a house felt ridiculous. It looked more like a luxury resort. Stone pathways. Private lake. Guest house. Gardens. Security gates. The kind of place people see in magazines. As I parked my car, I remembered sleeping on Sarah's couch 7 years earlier. Life had a strange sense of humor. Dinner started surprisingly well. Jonathan showed me old family photographs. Catherine asked about college. Several relatives stopped by to introduce themselves. Everyone seemed warm. Welcoming. Interested. Almost too interested. Because beneath every conversation lurked the same question. What happens now? Nobody said it aloud. But everyone was thinking it. Including me. Especially me. Rebecca arrived late. She walked in wearing a black blazer and carrying a laptop. Not exactly dinner attire. Sorry I'm late. Board meeting. Jonathan nodded. No problem. She sat down, smiled at everyone, and completely ignored me. For the next hour, she barely spoke. But I kept catching her watching me. Calculating. Measuring. Like a chess player studying a board. After dessert, Jonathan made an announcement. And suddenly everything changed. He stood, raised his glass, and smiled. I know this situation has been complicated. Everyone became quiet. But I want Emily to know something. She is family. Always was. Always will be. Catherine squeezed my hand. Several relatives nodded. Then Jonathan continued. And because of that, I've decided to update the family trust. The room froze. Every single person. Including Rebecca. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Family trust. Those 2 words hit the room like a bomb. I didn't fully understand why. Until I saw Rebecca's face. The color drained instantly. Not anger. Not surprise. Fear. Real fear. Jonathan continued speaking. My daughters deserve equal treatment. Daughters. Plural. The silence became painful. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And suddenly, I realized exactly what was happening. Jonathan wasn't just accepting me emotionally. He was accepting me legally, financially, officially, which meant Rebecca's future had just changed. Massively. That night, I drove home feeling sick. Not excited. Not happy. Sick. Because I never wanted this. I never asked for it. I came looking for truth. Not money. Not status. Not a family war. But family wars don't require permission. Sometimes they find you anyway. The next morning, someone leaked information to the press. By noon, local news websites were publishing stories. Heiress found after 21-year hospital mix-up. Missing biological daughter, RETURNS. Hawthorne family DNA revelation. My phone exploded. Emails. Messages. Calls. Social media requests. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted interviews. Comments. Opinions. Judgments. Everybody had something to say. Most of them had no idea what they were talking about. Then things got worse. Someone started leaking private information. My apartment address. My college records. Even details about being thrown out by Robert Carter. At first I assumed it was journalists. Then I received an anonymous email. One sentence. That's all. You should have SDOID gone. No signature. No explanation. Nothing. But I knew. Somehow. I knew. Rebecca. 3 days later, I confronted her. Directly. No lawyers. No family meetings. Just the two of us. She agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. The moment she sat down, I knew something was wrong. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Shoulders tense. Like someone carrying a weight too heavy to hide. Did you send the email? She looked confused. What email? I showed her. She read it. Then pushed the phone back. No. I didn't send that. I didn't believe her. Not immediately. But something about her reaction felt genuine. Too genuine. Then Rebecca surprised me. You think I'm your enemy. Aren't you? She laughed. Not happily. More like someone exhausted. Emily, do you know what my life has been like these past few weeks? I said nothing. She continued. One day I'm Jonathan Hawthorne's daughter. The next day every lawyer, investor, board member, and journalist in Minnesota is analyzing my future like a stock market report. For the first time, I felt something unexpected. Sympathy. Because she wasn't wrong. None of this was her fault either. She didn't switch bobbies. She didn't create the lie. She inherited it. Just like I did. Then Rebecca said something that changed everything. And I mean everything. Emily, there's something you need to know. My stomach tightened. What? She looked around the coffee shop, making sure nobody was listening. Then leaned forward. The DNA switch isn't the only secret. I felt my pulse quicken. What are you talking about? Her voice dropped. Someone paid to keep the truth buried. For 20 years. I stared at her. What? She nodded slowly. The hospital records didn't disappear by accident. The investigation didn't stop by accident. Someone made sure it stopped. My heart started pounding. Who? Rebecca swallowed. That's the problem. I don't know. But I know one thing. The person behind it isn't me. And it isn't my parents. Then she handed me a folder. A thick folder. Inside were copies of old documents, emails, financial records, investigator notes. And one name appeared again and again. A name I recognized instantly. Robert Carter. My father. No, not my father. The man who raised me. The man who threw me away. My hands started shaking. What is this? Rebecca looked terrified. I found it in my father's private files. Why would Robert Carter be connected to the hospital investigation? The question hung between us. Heavy. Impossible. Then I saw the date. Years before the DNA test. Years before everything collapsed. Robert Carter had been quietly investigating my birth long before anyone knew. Long before the DNA test. Long before he disowned me. Long before the truth came out. Which meant only one thing. The man who claimed he was shocked by the DNA results had been hiding something for over a decade. And whatever it was big enough to destroy multiple families, including his own. I looked up. Rebecca was staring at me. Neither of us spoke, because we were both thinking the same thing. What if Robert Carter knew far more than anyone realized? And what if the DNA test wasn't the beginning of the story, but the final stage of a plan that started 20 years earlier? I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. The folder Rebecca gave me sat open on my kitchen table until sunrise. Page after page. Note after note. Receipt after receipt. And every road somehow led back to one man. Robert Carter. The man who spent 7 years convincing himself I wasn't his daughter. The man who abandoned me. The man who apparently knew something about my birth long before the DNA test ever happened. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. One document changed everything. A payment record. Dated May 2009. Recipient. Midwest Genealogical Research Services. Amount. $4,800. Purpose. Confidential family investigation. My stomach tightened. Why would Robert Carter hire investigators 13 years before the DNA test? It made no sense. Unless the DNA test wasn't the beginning. Unless he had already suspected something. The next morning I called him. He answered on the third ring. Emily. His voice sounded tired. Older. Like the past few weeks had aged him. I got straight to the point. Why were you investigating my birth in 2009? Silence. Long silence. The kind that tells you everything before words arrive. Dad. Don't call me that. The words came out automatically. Not because I forgave him. Because old habits survive longer than love. Another pause. Then he said something strange. I hoped you'd never find those records. My pulse jumped. So they're real? Yes. I sat down. Slowly. Suddenly afraid of the answer. Why? Why investigate me? His voice became distant. Like someone remembering something painful. Because your grandmother made me. What? My grandmother. His mother. The woman who died when I was 14. The woman who always treated me differently. Warmer. Kinder. More protective. Your grandmother never believed the hospital story. I frowned. What hospital story? Another silence. Then Robert Carter told me something I'd never heard before. 3 months after I was born, my grandmother noticed something. Something small. Something most people would have ignored. You didn't look like me. You didn't look like Linda. You didn't look like anyone. Bobbies change constantly. Features shift. Faces develop. But according to my grandmother, Something felt wrong. Years later, she became obsessed with the idea. Not an affair. Not cheating. A hospital mistake. A switch. Nobody believed her. Not even Robert. Not at first. But she never let it go. Never. According to him, she spent years collecting newspaper articles, hospital reports, medical records, anything connected to St. Mary's Hospital. She even tracked down former nurses, looking for proof, looking for answers, looking for me, without realizing it. Then came the bombshell, the thing that nearly stopped my heart. Your grandmother found evidence. I froze. Evidence? What kind? His voice cracked slightly. Enough evidence that she made me promise something. What? If she ever died before proving it? I had to keep investigating. The room went silent. My grandmother knew. Or at least suspected. For years. Maybe decades. And she'd spent part of her life trying to find the truth. Then I asked the obvious question. If you believed her enough to investigate, why throw me away after the DNA test? The silence that followed felt endless. Then Robert answered. Because I was weak. Not angry. Not defensive. Just honest. Brutally honest. And somehow that hurt more. You have to understand. No. I cut him off. I don't. Explain it to me. Because for 7 years, I've tried to understand. 7 years. His breathing became heavier. The DNA result destroyed me. I laughed. A cold laugh. Destroyed you. He ignored it. I thought Linda cheated. I thought my entire marriage was a lie. Then the anger came. And once anger takes over, people start looking for someone to punish. I already knew where this was going. You punished me. Yes. One word. Quiet. Broken. Honest. Yes. For the first time in years. I heard him cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. I failed you. I know. I abandoned you. I know. I chose my pride over my daughter. I know. The conversation ended shortly afterward. Not because there was nothing left to say. Because there was too much. 3 days later, another twist arrived. And this one changed everything. Again. A lawyer called. Not Jonathan Hawthorne's lawyer. Not mine. A federal investigator. Miss Carter. Yes. My name is Agent Brian Keller. I need to ask you some questions regarding St. Mary's Hospital. The moment he said the hospital name, my pulse doubled. What happened? There's been a development. Development. The word sounded harmless. It wasn't. Agent Keller explained that someone had recently come forward. A witness. Someone who worked at the hospital 21 years ago. Someone who claimed the baby switch wasn't accidental. The world stopped. What? His voice remained calm. Professional. Measured. We're still investigating. But the witness alleges records were intentionally altered. I nearly dropped the phone. Intentionally. Meaning someone changed them on purpose. My entire body went cold. No. 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 That wasn't possible. The power outage. The missing bracelet. The confusion. That was the story everyone believed. An accident. A tragic mistake. But now, someone was saying it wasn't a mistake at all. Who would do that? The agent hesitated. That's exactly what we're trying to determine. Then he added something worse. The witness also claims money changed hands. Money. The room suddenly felt smaller. How much money? We don't know yet, but enough to make people take risks, enough to bury evidence, enough to silence employees, enough to keep secrets alive for decades. That night, I met Rebecca again. The moment she saw my face, she knew something happened. What? I told her everything. Every word. Every detail. Every horrible possibility. By the time I finished, she looked just as shocked as I felt. You think somebody bought us? The phrase sounded disgusting. But neither of us could find a better one. 2 Bobbies. 2 families. 21 stolen years. Someone had treated all of it like a business transaction. Then Rebecca remembered something. Something small. Something she'd never considered important before. Until now. When I was 12, I overheard an argument. Between who? Mom and Dad. Jonathan and Catherine. I leaned forward. What argument? Rebecca's face had gone pale. I didn't understand it at the time. But now, I think it matters. She swallowed hard, then repeated the exact sentence she remembered. Word for word. The sentence that changed everything. If Emily ever finds out who paid for it, none of us survive. The coffee shop became silent. My heart stopped. Who said that? My father. Jonathan Hawthorne. The man I had just started trusting. The man who claimed he spent years searching for me. The man who swore he wanted the truth. And according to Rebecca, he knew something about a payment. A payment connected to my birth. Connected to the switch. Connected to 21 years of lies. For the first time, I wondered if the Hawthorns were hiding secrets too. And if they were, then maybe nobody in this story was innocent. Not Robert Carter. Not Jonathan Hawthorne. Maybe not even Catherine. Because suddenly, one question stood above all the others. Who paid for the baby switch? And more importantly, why? For the next 48 hours, I couldn't stop thinking about what Rebecca had said. If Emily ever finds out who paid for it, none of us survive. According to Rebecca, Jonathan Hawthorne said those words years ago. The same Jonathan Hawthorne who cried when he met me. The same Jonathan Hawthorne who called me his daughter. The same Jonathan Hawthorne who claimed he'd spent years searching for me. So which version was real? The loving father? Or the man hiding a secret worth millions? 3 days later, Agent Keller called again. Miss Carter, we found the witness. I sat upright immediately. What witness? The former hospital administrator. My pulse spiked. Alive. Yes. And she's agreed to testify. The room suddenly felt smaller. For 21 years, everyone had theories. Now someone who was there was finally talking. The meeting took place in a federal office building. No cameras. No reporters. Just investigators. Lawyers. And one elderly woman named Patricia Collins. 74 years old. Retired. Terminal cancer. No reason left to lie. No reason left to stay silent. The moment she entered the room, I felt history walking through the door. Patricia looked at me for a long time. Then tears filled her eyes. You look exactly like your mother. Which one? The question slipped out before I could stop it. The room became silent. Patricia smiled sadly. Both of them. That answer somehow hurt more. Then Agent Keller asked the question everyone was waiting for. What happened in 2002? Patricia took a deep breath and finally told the truth. The power outage was real. The missing bracelet was real. The confusion was real. But the baby switch wasn't. The room froze. What? Patricia nodded. The Bobbies were correctly identified. Correctly documented. Correctly assigned. My heart started racing. Then how? Someone changed the records afterward. Not before. After. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Agent Keller leaned forward. Who changed them? Patricia looked down, then whispered a name. The nurse supervisor. Evelyn Parker. I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. No. No. That wasn't possible. Evelyn was the one who told me the truth. The one who found me. The one who exposed everything. Patricia shook her head. She didn't expose it. She caused it. The room exploded. Questions. Arguments. Confusion. Nothing made sense anymore. Why would Evelyn do that? Patricia's voice trembled. Because she thought she was helping. Helping who? The answer changed everything. Catherine Hawthorne. I couldn't breathe. What? Patricia looked devastated. Catherine Hawthorne had just delivered a stillborn baby girl. The room went silent. Dead silent. Every sound vanished. No one moved. No one spoke. Even Agent Keller looked shocked. Patricia continued. At almost the same time, Linda Carter gave birth to a healthy baby. Me. And according to Patricia, Catherine completely broke down. Emotionally. Psychologically. She became obsessed with the idea that she couldn't lose her child. Couldn't lose her family. Couldn't survive the grief. Then Evelyn made a decision. A terrible decision. She switched the bobbies. On purpose. I felt physically sick. No. 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 That couldn't be true. Because if it was, then Catherine Hawthorne wasn't my biological mother. The entire story collapsed again. Every piece. Every answer. Every assumption. Everything. Agent Keller looked stunned. Wait. If Catherine's baby died, then who is Emily? Patricia's answer landed like a bomb. We don't know. The room froze. What? Patricia nodded. The second baby wasn't Catherine Hawthorne's child. It was another baby. Born 37 minutes later. A baby whose records disappeared completely. The silence became unbearable. I wasn't Linda Carter's daughter. I wasn't Catherine Hawthorne's daughter. I wasn't Rebecca's biological sister. I wasn't Jonathan Hawthorne's child. Then who was I? Suddenly, every piece fell apart. Again. The DNA test. The switch. The Hawthornes. Everything. Because the entire investigation had been built on one assumption. That there were only two Bobbies. But according to Patricia, there were three. Agent Keller looked pale. 3. Patricia nodded. 1 stillborn. 2 living infants. And 1 set of records vanished. Completely. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. Who deleted them? Patricia looked away. I don't know. But I know who ordered it. The room became silent again. Who? This time, the answer wasn't Catherine. It wasn't Robert. It wasn't Jonathan. It wasn't Evelyn. It was someone nobody expected. Someone who hadn't appeared in the story before. Patricia whispered the name. Dr. Michael Reeves. Head of obstetrics. St. Mary's Hospital. Agent Keller immediately recognized it. The expression on his face changed. You know him. Patricia nodded slowly. Everybody knew him. Respected doctor. Wealthy. Connected. Untouchable. At least back then. Then Agent Keller opened a file. A file he hadn't planned to show anyone. Until now. Inside was a photograph. I stared at it. And my blood turned cold. Because I recognized the man instantly. Not from the hospital. Not from news articles. Not from records. From my own childhood. I had seen him before. Many times. At my house. Talking to Robert Carter. Laughing with him. Attending family barbecues. Christmas parties. Birthday gatherings. My voice barely worked. I know him. The room turned toward me. What? I swallowed hard. Dr. Michael Reeves wasn't a stranger. He was one of my father's closest friends. The silence that followed felt endless. Because suddenly, a horrifying possibility appeared. What if Robert Carter wasn't investigating the truth? What if he'd been protecting it? And if that was true, then everything I believed about the last 21 years was wrong. Again. Because somewhere out there, the answer to my real identity still existed. And the man who might know it had been sitting at my family's dinner table my entire childhood. For almost 10 seconds, nobody in the room spoke. I couldn't take my eyes off the photograph. Dr. Michael Reeves, the man who attended my high school graduation, the man who shook my hand when I won the science fair, the man who brought expensive wine to my parents' Christmas parties, the man my father called Mike. My entire body felt numb. How long had Robert known? How much had he known? And why had he never told me? Agent Keller immediately arranged a meeting. Not next week. Not tomorrow. That day. Apparently, Dr. Reeves had already been under investigation for unrelated financial crimes. Insurance fraud. Medical billing irregularities. Missing records. Things that seemed small individually, but together painted a different picture. A dangerous picture. For the first time in 21 years, the untouchable doctor wasn't untouchable anymore. 3 hours later, we sat inside a federal conference room. Dr. Reeves arrived with 2 attorneys. Expensive suits. Expensive watches. Expensive confidence. The kind rich people wear when they think they'll never face consequences. Then he saw me, and his expression changed. Only slightly. But enough. He knew exactly who I was. Emily Carter. His voice was calm. Too calm. You've grown up. The words hit me like a punch. You've grown up. Not to. Nice to meet you. Not to. How are you? Not to. I'm sorry. You've grown up. Like he'd been watching from a distance. Like he'd always known. Agent Keller got straight to the point. What happened on October 18th, 2002? Dr. Reeves smiled. Nothing unusual. Agent Keller placed Patricia's statement on the table. His smile faded. Then Evelyn Parker's records. Then the missing hospital logs. Then the financial transactions. One by one. Like pieces of a trap closing. For the first time all afternoon. Dr. Reeves looked nervous. Then Agent Keller slid one final document across the table. A bank transfer. Dated 3 days after my birth. Amount. $500,000. Transferred into an offshore account. Recipient. Michael Reeves. The room became silent. $500,000. 21 years ago. For perspective, that amount would be worth over $1 million today. Who paid you? Agent Keller asked. No answer. Who paid you? Still nothing. Then something unexpected happened. One of Reeves' attorneys leaned toward him, whispered something, and suddenly the doctor's shoulders slumped. The fight disappeared. Just like that. After 21 years. He knew it was over. The answer came quietly. Almost too quietly to hear. Jonathan Hawthorne. The room froze. Every person, every sound, every thought stopped. I felt physically sick. No. That wasn't possible. Jonathan Hawthorne had welcomed me, hugged me, called me daughter, spent years searching for me. Hadn't he? Then why would he pay $500,000 to hide the truth? Dr. Reeves continued. 21 years ago, Catherine lost her baby. Jonathan couldn't accept it. Neither could she. They were desperate. Rich. Influential. And desperate. A terrible combination. According to Reeves, Jonathan made an offer. A life-changing amount of money. Enough for silence. Enough for altered records. Enough for new birth certificates. Enough for everyone involved to look the other way. Most refused. A few didn't. Evelyn Parker was one of them. The room felt like it was spinning. Then Agent Keller asked the question nobody wanted answered. Which baby was switched? Reeves looked directly at me. You. The answer landed like an explosion. Not Rebecca. Not Catherine's child. Me. You were the healthy infant. The one Jonathan chose. The one Catherine raised. Then why wasn't I raised by them? I shouted. For the first time all day. Why wasn't I? The answer broke something inside me. Because the plan failed. 3 days after the switch, someone discovered irregularities. Hospital administrators panicked. Lawyers got involved. The switch couldn't be completed cleanly. So another decision was made. A worse one. A more desperate one. Records were altered again. And somehow, through layers of lies, I ended up with the Carters, while Rebecca ended up with the Hawthorns. Neither placement was correct. Neither family got the child they intended to raise. The entire situation became a disaster nobody could undo. So they buried it. 21 years. 21 years of lies. 21 years of pretending. 21 years of stolen lives. All because one wealthy man couldn't accept losing a child. That evening, I drove directly to Jonathan Hawthorne's estate. No appointment. No warning. No phone call. I wanted answers. Now. Jonathan was standing on the porch when I arrived. Almost like he knew I was coming. Maybe he did. Maybe the investigators called. Maybe guilt did. Either way, he wasn't surprised. Is it true? My voice shook. The question hung in the air. Jonathan looked older than I'd ever seen him. Smaller somehow. Then he nodded. Once. Just once. And my world shattered. Again. Yes. One word. One terrible word. Yes. I paid them. I paid all of them. The tears came instantly. Not because I was shocked anymore. Because part of me had hoped he would deny it. Part of me still wanted a father. Any father. Why? The question barely escaped my lips. Jonathan's eyes filled with tears. Because I was weak. The exact same answer Robert Carter had given me. Weak. Funny how often terrible people use that word. As if weakness excuses destruction. As if weakness explains stolen lives. Jonathan looked toward the lake behind the estate. The same lake he'd spent decades staring at. The same lake he'd built his empire beside. Catherine was dying. The words hit me like a truck. What? She had postpartum psychosis. Severe depression. She blamed herself. She stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. Stopped living. The doctors thought she might hurt herself. Or worse. I thought if she had a baby, she would survive. I stared at him. Horrified. Not because I couldn't understand desperation. Because I could. But desperation doesn't justify theft. Especially not of a child. Then Jonathan revealed something even worse. Something nobody expected. Emily. I didn't just steal a baby. I stole the wrong baby. The room seemed to stop. What? His face collapsed. The records were altered so many times. Nobody knew which infant was actually ours anymore. Not even me. Not even the hospital. Not even Reeves. And suddenly, the biggest question in the story returned. Who were my real biological parents? Because after 21 years, nobody knew. Not the Hawthorns. Not the Carters. Not the hospital. Nobody. And somewhere out there, my actual family still existed, completely unaware that I was looking for them. Or maybe, looking for me. The search wasn't over. It had only just begun. The search for my real family started with a simple question. Who am I? Not legally. Not emotionally. Biologically. For 21 years, I thought I was Emily Carter. Then I learned I wasn't. Then I thought I was Emily Hawthorne. Then I learned I wasn't that either. Now I wasn't sure who I was at all. 3 weeks later, every major DNA database in the country had my profile. Ancestry, 23andMe, Family Tree DNA, my heritage, everything. The investigators uploaded every available sample. Then we waited. Days passed. Nothing. Weeks passed. Nothing. Then one rainy Thursday morning, Agent Keller called. Emily, we found a match. My heart nearly stopped. What kind of match? A close one. Very close. Closer than anyone expected. I drove to Minneapolis immediately. The entire way there, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every possibility ran through my mind. Mother, father, brother, sister, grandparents, someone, anyone. When I arrived, Keller was already waiting. He handed me a folder. Inside was a family tree. Several names were highlighted. At the center sat one woman, age 43, teacher, living in Wisconsin. Name, Sarah Mitchell. The name meant nothing to me. At first. Then Keller pointed to the DNA percentages. Shared DNA, 49.8%. I looked at him. What does that mean? His answer changed everything. She isn't your cousin. She isn't your aunt. She isn't your sister. Emily, she's your mother. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Mother. Not maybe. Not possibly. Mother. Confirmed. Scientifically. Absolutely. After 21 years. I finally had an answer. But then Keller's expression darkened. There's something else. Of course there was. There always was. What? Sarah Mitchell has been searching for a missing daughter for 21 years. I froze. What? He nodded. Every year. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Every Mother's Day. She never stopped. The room became silent. Because suddenly, another possibility appeared. What if I wasn't the only victim? What if my mother had spent 2 decades living with the same pain? The same questions. The same emptiness. Keller opened another folder. Inside were photographs. Hundreds of them. Birthday cakes. School events. Family vacations. Christmas mornings. At first, I didn't understand. Then I noticed something. Every year there was one empty chair. The same chair. At every family gathering. Every birthday. Every holiday. Always empty. What's that? Keller swallowed. Sarah's family tradition. They saved a place for you. The words hit harder than anything else. They saved a place for you. For 21 years. An empty chair. Waiting for a daughter they never stopped looking for. I couldn't stop crying. Then came another shock. The Mitchell family wasn't wealthy. They weren't famous. They weren't powerful. Sarah worked as an elementary school teacher. Her husband, David, repaired farm equipment. Middle class. Normal people. The kind of people nobody writes newspaper articles about. The kind of people who quietly love their children. And according to every report, they never stopped loving me. Not once. Not ever. The following Saturday, I drove to Wisconsin. Alone. No investigators. No lawyers. No reporters. Just me. The road stretched through small towns and farmland. Simple places. Peaceful places. Places that felt strangely familiar. Even though I'd never been there before. The Mitchell house wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a glass tower. It wasn't a private estate. It was a modest white farmhouse surrounded by trees. A swing sat on the porch. Flowers lined the walkway. The kind of home that looked warm even from a distance. And suddenly, I didn't want to get out of the car. Because for the first time in my life, the truth was waiting behind a front door. The door opened before I knocked. Sarah Mitchell was already standing there. Like she'd been watching the window. Waiting. Hopping. Praying. For 21 years. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us breathed. Then tears filled her eyes. Instantly. Not because she recognized my face. Because she recognized something deeper. The connection only a mother feels. Emily. Just my name. That's all she said. Then she started crying. The kind of crying that comes from decades of heartbreak finally breaking loose. I started crying too. And before either of us realized it, we were hugging, standing in the doorway, holding on to 21 stolen years. Inside the house were more surprises. Photographs, albums, drawings, letters, hundreds of letters, all addressed to me. Every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation, every milestone. Letters written to a daughter she couldn't find. A daughter she never stopped believing was alive. Then Sarah showed me something that broke me completely. A small bedroom upstairs. Frozen in time. The walls painted soft blue. Bookshelves. Stuffed animals. Family photos. Everything untouched. For 21 years. I stood there speechless. Why? Sarah smiled through tears. Because someday, I thought you'd come home. The room blurred. My vision filled with tears. Because nobody had ever waited for me like that. Nobody. Then a voice came from behind us. Mom. I turned. A young woman stood in the hallway. Brown hair. Green eyes. Maybe 19 years old. She looked at me. Then at Sarah. Then back at me. And suddenly started crying too. Who is she? The answer came quietly. My sister. My real sister. The first blood relative I'd ever knowingly met. For the first time in my life. I wasn't alone. I wasn't lost. I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't a secret. I wasn't evidence. I was somebody's daughter. Somebody's sister. Somebody's family. And for a moment, it felt like the story was finally ending. But I was wrong. Because that night, a knock on the Mitchell family's front door revealed one final secret. A secret so shocking, it would explain why I disappeared in the first place. And expose the real mastermind behind 21 years of lies. That night, nobody expected visitors. Especially not at 10:30. Especially not after one of the most emotional days of my life. Yet someone was standing on the porch. waiting, watching, and whoever it was, they already knew I was there. David Mitchell opened the door, then froze. His face lost all color. For several seconds, he simply stared, like he'd seen a ghost. Dad. My younger sister looked confused. Who is it? David didn't answer. His eyes remained locked on the man standing outside. Then he whispered something. A name. One I had never heard before. Richard. The stranger slowly stepped inside. Late 60s. Gray hair. Expensive coat. The kind of man who carried authority without speaking. And the moment he looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. Real tears. Not rehearsed. Not fake. Real. Emily. My stomach tightened. How do you know my name? The room became silent. Then Sarah Mitchell sat down heavily, almost like she'd been expecting this moment. For years. Maybe decades. David closed the door. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Until finally, Richard looked at me and said the words that changed everything one final time. Because I'm your grandfather. The room exploded. What? No. Impossible. My grandfather. I looked at Sarah. Then David. Then Richard. Trying to understand. Trying to breathe. Trying to think. Nothing made sense. Again. Then Richard removed an old photograph from his coat pocket. The photo was faded. Creased. Clearly carried for years. Maybe decades. He handed it to me. I looked down. And froze. Because the baby in the picture looked exactly like me. Not similar. Not close. Exactly. Who are you? Richard sat down slowly. Then finally told the story nobody knew. Not the investigators. Not the Hawthorns. Not even Dr. Reeves. 22 years earlier. Before I was born. Sarah Mitchell had another sister. Her older sister. Elizabeth. My aunt. Elizabeth had become involved with a wealthy businessman. A powerful man. Married. Influential. The relationship was secret. Dangerously secret. Then Elizabeth became pregnant. When she refused to end the pregnancy, everything changed. The businessman panicked. His reputation. His marriage. His career. Everything was at risk. And according to Richard, he became desperate. Elizabeth gave birth to a baby girl. Me. But she died during complications shortly afterward. The room became silent. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. My biological mother wasn't Sarah. It was Elizabeth. Sarah was my aunt. The woman who raised a room for me. Waited for me. Searched for me. Was actually my aunt. Not my mother. Then who was my father? The question came out automatically. Because deep down, I already knew there was something terrible coming. Richard looked away. The silence answered before he did. Then finally he spoke. The businessman. The married man. The one who wanted the secret buried. He was your father. The room felt frozen. Who? Nobody answered immediately. Not Sarah. Not David. Not Richard. Nobody wanted to say it. Because everyone knew what came next. Then Richard whispered the name. Jonathan Hawthorne. Everything stopped. Completely. The world. The room. My heartbeat. Everything. No. 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 Jonathan Hawthorne. The man who claimed to be my biological father. The man who paid to hide the truth. The man who spent years searching for me. The man who cried when he met me. The man who welcomed me into his family. The man who had actually been my father all along. I staggered backward, unable to process it, because suddenly everything made sense. The money, the cover-up, the obsession, the hospital records, the missing files, the panic, everything. Jonathan didn't lose a child. He was hiding one. Me. His secret child. His illegitimate child. The daughter who could destroy his reputation. Destroy his marriage. Destroy his empire. 21 years earlier. He thought the problem disappeared. Then the baby switch disaster happened. And suddenly, a secret child became impossible to track. Impossible to control. Impossible to erase. That's why he paid. Not to steal a baby. To hide one. Me. 3 days later, I confronted him. For the final time. Jonathan didn't deny anything. Not one word. Not one fact. Not one accusation. He simply listened. Head lowered. Silent. Defeated. When I finished speaking, he started crying. For real. The kind of crying people do when they finally stop lying. I loved your mother. Not Catherine. Elizabeth. I loved her. Then why hide me? I asked. His answer was simple. Because I was a coward. Funny. That word again. Coward. Weak. Afraid. Every terrible decision in this story seemed to come from fear. Jonathan admitted everything. The affair. The pregnancy. The money. The cover-up. The panic. The lies. All of it. Then came the final court hearing. The final investigation. The final truth. Dr. Reeves lost his medical license. Several hospital administrators faced charges. Millions of dollars in settlements were paid. Records were officially corrected. Publicly. Permanently. Robert Carter apologized. Repeatedly. For years. I never hated him. But some damage can't be undone. We slowly rebuilt a relationship. Not father and daughter. Not completely. But something close. Something honest. Rebecca and I became friends. Ironically, the only person who truly understood my situation. Because both of us had lost identities. Both of us had lost certainty. Both of us had inherited lies. Sarah remained one of the most important people in my life. Whether she was my mother or aunt no longer mattered. Love doesn't care about biology. Love cares about showing up. And she always had. Even when she didn't know where I was. As for Jonathan Hawthorne, forgiveness took longer. Much longer. Years. Not months. Years. Because forgiveness isn't pretending something didn't happen. It's choosing not to carry it forever. One spring afternoon, years later, I visited Elizabeth's grave. My real mother's grave. For the first time. Alone. I placed flowers beside the headstone. Sat quietly. And looked at the name. Elizabeth Ann Mitchell. My mother. For a long time I said nothing. Then finally whispered the words I'd waited my whole life to say. Hi, Mom. I'm Emily. And I finally found my way home.